fellas, and I like asking the question, I'll say, do you think is there any possibility in trillions of years that these faces could appear on this rock by chance natural processes like exfoliation or thermal expansion or, erosion or wind abrasion? They'll say, no, it's probably not going to happen. One chance in maybe a couple of gazillion. Okay. And yet, they think that George Washington himself, with 50 trillion cells in his complex body, happened by chance. Well, you're welcome to believe that, but that's not logical and it's not science. It's pure religion, and you need to simply admit that. So they're always avoiding the design argument. In the textbooks, they say plants are adapted to their environment. Gills are an adaptation to living in water. Well, how did they adapt before? How did they live before they adapted the gills? Oh, for millions of years, they all died. None of them lived. Yeah. They don't use the word design because textbooks avoid using the word design because that automatically leads to the logical conclusion, hey, who's the designer? Okay? My watch holds 300 phone numbers. It's a calculator, stopwatch, alarm clock, and a countdown timer. It does not tell time. I have to look at it. But there had to be a designer. You don't have to meet the designer to believe he exists. The creation is proof there was a creator. People say, where's the evidence for God? I say, do you have to light a candle to see the sun? I mean, look around. How you can study biology and not see an incredible amount of design from the molecular level, through the cellular level, through the tissue, organ level, through the entire structure, through the interrelationship of symbiosis relationships, through the universe, the planets, going around the sun, and the incredible mathematics behind all this. Most of the great scientists of the first few hundred years of science were creationists looking for some way to figure out the mind of the designer. Science ought to bring us to the creator. It's obvious. I see design, I conclude designer. I think it is totally illogical to walk through the woods and find a painting and say, I can't see the painter, so he doesn't exist. And that's what evolutionists are doing.
Okay. The next question for Dr. Weisenberg is, show us one transitional fossil that exists, or a proof of a transitional fossil.
Oh, the transitional fossil story. Look, here's the harsh reality. There are many, many, many transitional fossils. They're in the museums. Go look at them. Oh, I didn't happen to have one in my pocket. I'm sorry.
Did you bring God?
Let me answer my question. Now look, every time something comes up, I had this our debate not so long ago, and of course you mentioned Archaeopteryx, which is a feathered dinosaur fossil, or a bird with teeth in its beak and dinosaur-like features. And of course, oh, that's a bird, no, that's a dinosaur. Well, look, what professional paleontologists do is they examine the details of the bone structure. They examine the teeth. They examine the ear bones. They examine, and what they do with that data is they create as best they can the pattern of change. And you can go into any journal of paleontology, there's lots of them, and you can look at that data if you're so inclined. That's what paleontologists do for a living. They work out those transitions. Okay? Now, the other thing about paleontologists in that job, it's awfully hard work for a very simple reason. When these events happen, the transitions happen, evolutionary theory tells us it happens in a very small population. It's the only possible way it could happen. All right? So there are some mutations, there's some combination of mutations in a small population, proves the fitness. The chances of finding those fossils are, in fact, it's hard, but they do find them. There are millions of them. No, I didn't bring you one, but if you'd like, sign up. We'll go to the museum together. We'll look at them, okay? That's not, I'm sorry. Look, what do you do with a feathered dinosaur? I don't know what to do with it. And by the way, yeah, there was a fraud, but after the fraudulent feathered dinosaur, there were several discoveries that are absolutely bona fide of feathered dinosaurs. So, that's just the way it is. And I'll say one thing also about this designer thing. I've been to the White Mountains. You ever see the Old Man of the Mountain in the White Mountains? Yeah. I guess that was the same designer. You can, in fact, you do see structures appearing by chance. And what evolution does is it selects those that work. That's all it does.
Okay. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to change it a little bit. We're going to let them answer the question. Also going to let the other speaker rebut their answer to the question just a minute or two after the question is asked.
How do you explain the formation of granites within a creation time frame?
How do I explain the formation of granites? I'm not sure that anyone has been able to demonstrate the granite formation. I know that if you melt granite and then let it cool back down, it does not reform into granite. There have been quite a few studies on granite. I think it's interesting to see that in granite we find some pretty amazing things called radiopolonium halos. If I had a second, I would get to that. But these radiopolonium halos, Robert Gentry was one of the world's experts on the disposal of radioactive waste. He worked at Oak Ridge Laboratories in Knoxville, Tennessee area there. And let's see, I think it's right here, okay. Radiopolonium halos. I have over 5,000 pictures in PowerPoint, so it would help if you would ask the questions in the same order that I have the answers. Okay. Be a little quicker anyway. There's polonium halos on here. Halos. Was the Earth a hot molten mass? There you go. Okay, good. Granites are a very interesting rock. Robert Gentry did quite a collection, has quite a huge collection. Actually, I've been to his laboratory in Tennessee. The Bible says pretty clearly the earth was created and it was underwater, which means it was never a hot molten mass, whereas the evolution theory teaches the earth was hot, a hot molten mass, and it slowly cooled down. These are clearly contradictory. Somebody is obviously wrong. Either the earth was hot or the earth was never hot, a hot molten mass anyway on the surface. Robert Gentry's website is halos.com if you want to get all the details on that. In the laboratory, under the microscope, they've discovered, looking at granites, they see all sorts of little radiopolonium halos, which is kind of like a hand grenade going off in a huge block of jello would produce a ring, a halo, that would, the fragments would be suspended in the jello. Of course, we don't see this in water because the fragments fall apart. We don't see the 4th of July fireworks make their ring and then stay there in the air because they all fall down. But in granite, we find these polonium halos, indicating the rock was never a hot molten mass because these halos would have flowed away. Polonium has a very short half-life, anywhere from 64 thousandths of a second to 2 minutes, I think. So the existence of these halos is really a mystery to those who believe the rock was a hot molten mass. And I think you'll find, if you go to the website halos.com, you'll find lots of evidence on this. Robert Gentry published in major magazines. Science journals published his stuff for years until somebody realized, ooh, do you realize this proves the Big Bang theory's wrong? And his research funding was shut off like a spigot because anything that doesn't go with the evolution theory will not be supported. Just like if a teacher stood up in the Soviet Union 10 years ago and said, I don't believe in communism, they would find themselves out of a job. And if a teacher in this university said, I don't believe in evolution, they probably would find themselves out of a job. There is not academic freedom in places like this. Okay, go ahead.
Would you like to give a rebuttal to that at all? Okay. We'll move on to the next question to Dr. Weisenberg. And the question is, Dr. Hovind in his presentation disproved the geologic column and the Big Bang theory.